Hi everybody, Mrs. Danielson here, and today we're going to talk just briefly about absolute value. This is a review for most of us, but it has been a long summer, so let's review absolute value today. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my iPad, and I've already got some stuff set up and ready to go for us. Okay, so absolute value is the distance on a number line that a number is from zero. It's the distance from zero. Now, distance can't be a negative number. If you think about it, if I say the distance it is from me over to this chair over here, it doesn't make sense to say that that distance is -2 feet, right? I'm not -2 feet away from that chair. I'm 2 feet away from that chair, but it doesn't make sense to say -2 feet. So that's the case when we're saying absolute value. That's what we're thinking about, right? If I say the distance on a number line, there's no way that I can say something is -2 away from zero, right? It doesn't make any sense. Nothing is ever negative away from something else. So absolute value, that's what we're thinking about. That's the concept we have in our heads when we're thinking about absolute value. Okay, the distance something is away from zero. The way we show absolute value, or that we're taking the absolute value, is by using two vertical bars. So absolute value is two vertical bars. Okay, that's our symbol for absolute value. Okay, so let's say I want to know how far is -3 from zero? What's the absolute value of -3? What I'm actually asking for, again, is what is the absolute value of -3? Means how far is -3 from zero? How far is this distance right here? That's what I want to know. The distance -3 is from zero. And like I mentioned before, it doesn't make sense to say it's -3 away, right? So what we say is that it is 3 away. Okay, so the absolute value of -3 is 3. So essentially what we're doing is, if what we're taking the absolute value of is a negative number, then we're just taking that negative sign off and making it a positive number, because this distance from -3 to 3, that distance is 3. All right, because I can't be -3 away. It just doesn't make sense, right? Okay, what if I wanted to know the distance that 4 is away from zero? What's the absolute value of 4? How far is it from zero? Right, so we're talking about from here to here, 0 to 4. How far is that? Okay, well, the distance from 0 to 4, the absolute value of 4, that distance is 4, right? That one's pretty easy, right? Because it's not a -4, it's just a 4. Okay, so that number is going to be a 4. Okay, so taking the absolute value of a positive number is pretty easy, right? It's just that number. Okay, it's a little more confusing when it's a negative number. Okay, all right, so let's just do a couple of practice problems. Okay, let's say I wanted to know the absolute value of 54. What would that be? Okay, that means the distance on a number line from 0 to 54. How far is that from 0 to 54? Right, the distance from 0 to 54 is 54. Okay, and that's your answer. Okay, how about what is the distance from 0 to -7? Okay, the absolute value of -7, the distance from 0 to -7 on my number line. That distance isn't -7, right? Like the distance from me to my chair isn't -2, the distance is 2. Okay, so the absolute value of -7 is 7, right? The distance is 7. Let's get a little trickier here, right? Because all of our problems are not always going to be that simple, and we know that, right? Let's say we want to do the negative absolute value of -6 2/3. Okay, I'm really getting tricky here, right? Because I have absolute value, and it's a fraction. Oh, not a fraction, no. And there's a negative in front. Okay, well, first let's just think about the absolute value part of that. right? What's the distance from 0 to negative 6 2/3, right? That distance is not negative 6 2/3. That distance is 6 2/3. Okay, so that means the absolute value of negative 6 2/3 is 6 2/3. So this part right here, right, that's a positive 6 2/3. But just to like confuse us, right, we added that negative in front, right? So we have to include that. So the answer is negative 6 2/3 because there's that negative in front. Sneaky stuff, right? Okay, let's turn it up a little notchy. Okay, just a bit. Let's do the absolute value of 3 minus the absolute value of negative 1. Okay, so we have two absolute values, 3 and negative 1. Okay, what is the absolute value of 3? It's 3. What's the absolute value of negative 1? Okay, the distance from 0 to negative 1. That distance is 1, not negative 1, so the absolute value is 1. Okay, so that makes our problem 3 minus 1. And 3 minus 1 is 2. And that's our answer. Okay. I want to do one more quick problem and then we'll be done with this video. Okay. The absolute value of 2.2 minus 5.13. Okay. So we always do what's inside the parentheses first, right? That's our order of operations. So you want to do the 2.2 minus 5.13. You want to do that first. And then you're going to take care of the parentheses, but you do inside first, right? So you're probably going to go to your calculator and you're going to do what is 2.2 minus 5.13. What is that? Right? And your calculator is going to tell you that it's minus 2.93. It's a negative number. Okay, so now we're going to take the absolute value of that, negative 2.93. What's the distance from 0 to negative 2.93? What is that distance? Right? It's 2.93. And that's your answer. Okay, so that's it for our quick review of absolute value. Okay, I hope everything went okay and it was a good review. Thanks, everyone.